Hello and welcome to Site Inventory. In this session, we'll be looking at how the inventory works, how the management of inventory works, how do you manage the stores at site, and how important the store of the site is to the construction of the project and making sure that the efficiency of the project is at all-time high. So in this session, we'll be looking at multiple things regarding the material, the delivery of material, the returns, the payment, the storage, the indent, outdent, and the usage of materials throughout the construction. The first thing that we'll be looking at is the stores. Now, when we talk about construction organization and suppliers, that means contractors, clients, and suppliers as in vendors and subcontractors, all are important to make sure that we store the materials at the right place, maintain the track of the materials, making sure that the materials are used before the expiry, before the material is harmed, making sure the right amount of labor or workforce is being put up for the stores, and making sure we have the right material handling equipments or material handling units for the maintenance and operations of the inventory or the stores. Now, that is very important when we look at the efficiency of the store and in return, the efficiency of the project. Now, this comes under inventory management systems. Now, all these above mentioned necessities are kept at the stores. The important thing that we need to understand in terms of process is first, we need to make sure the issue fixed rate contracts for materials for long term or bulk purchases. That means if we have a huge material which is being used throughout the project, that means we can be ordering it in bulk or we can be negotiating the price in bulk, but you would not need to order the material in bulk. For example, steel, let's say, is used highly in the construction or reinforcement steel. So if I have reinforcement steel, I know that it is used throughout the project, but do I need all the material at once? Not really. So what we do is we fix the rate. So we fix the rate for the entire batch of the steel required, but we order only specific amount of the total amount based on the requirements at each stages. For example, if I have 100 metric ton of steel required for the entire project, but at this moment I need only 10 MT. In that case, I'll be ordering only 10 metric tons. And eventually, whenever the requirement is there, that time I can order in batches at the same rate because I've had a fixed rate contract with the supplier. Second is to create multiple delivery requests. When I say create multiple delivery requests, that means purchase orders. So whenever there is a requirement, we'll need to increase the purchase order. We'll need to get the purchase order to the supplier because getting the purchase order is the official statement that the contractor is requiring a material. So unless you get it in purchase order, materials are not considered to be ordered officially. Not a WhatsApp message, not a call, but purchase order is official. For the next process or the step in the process, we need to have a receipt entry for material and plant received at the project site house. One big mistake that a lot of engineers do is that they don't have the records of when the material entered, what was the quantity of material which entered, the delivery challan, the invoices, and multiple other documents. So it is very important for us to know how much material is claimed to have entered. Now, will you check the amount of material when they enter? Not really. Unless you put it in the store, you don't actually count. Let's say if some vendor sends you 100 bags of cement. Will you actually check 100 bags of cement when it is in the truck? Not really. Only when you unload the truck is when you count whether you have 100 bags or not. So that is why it's important for us to get an official number, which is basically the material receipt or the entry receipt. So this will tell you officially how much bags should be there in the truck. The fourth one is cash purchase provision. In India, there is a huge difference in terms of the credit purchase and the cash purchase. If you are ordering materials in bulk, which is through purchase orders and through official routes, of course, credits will be paid. However, if you're ordering small miscellaneous material like nuts or bolts or very small materials like rebar or sometimes tools, especially, right? So those kind of materials will be ordered from a local vendor. When it is the local small vendor, you should have the provision of cash dealing as well. I'm not saying black money, I'm saying cash dealing, because cash dealing means you will have to raise cash vouchers as well. So for each cash transaction, you will have to write a voucher and get it signed, right? Then it becomes official. The next one will be the delivery receipts for the material. The first one is the entry receipt. Fifth one is the delivery receipt. So delivery receipts means this will be provided officially by the provider or the vendor himself. So this is where they will be giving the quantity, the importance, the specification of the material, the test results of the material as well. So most of the materials would have to go through number of tests in the manufacturing plant before being delivered to the site. And that document is called as MTC. That means Manufacturer's Test Certificate. So that also will be given with the delivery receipt. The next process will be material plant transfer out and in operations. That means whenever there is any material that is being brought in or gone out from the store, tax invoices have to be raised. One is the delivery challan or the delivery receipt. Second is the entry receipt. Third is MTC, which is manufacturer test certificate. And fourth and officially important one is your invoice, and that is tax invoice. So based on the material, the taxes change. Hence, it is important for us to raise tax invoice for each material. So that is something that should be raised once the material is delivered. However, because it takes a lot of time to raise once the material is delivered, the vendor normally what they do is they send a tax invoice copy through the delivery itself. So along with the delivery, you will be getting tax invoices also. So there are normally going to be three copies of tax invoice, one with the client, one with the contractor, and third one with the transporter. When I say client, it's the vendor. So one will be with the vendor, second one will be the contractor who will receive the tax invoice, third will be with the transporter who will use it during state borders or district borders wherever there is a check post. Hence, it is required for all the three people. The seventh point is in terms of spare parts for machinery and consumables, issuing and reordering. So a lot of equipments and a lot of inventory management is about handling the spare parts. If you are buying a RMC or a transit mixture, so transit mixture is one of the vehicle or an equipment, let's say. But along with that, you will have to buy a lot of spare parts, which is going to enhance the performance of the transit mixer as well. Hence, spare parts sometimes you will be getting from the same vendor or you will have to go with the different vendor. So spare parts are also important, especially when you are looking at equipments in the construction site. The eighth point will be material issue with site stock according to cost code or work order or employees. So from the site, when we are looking at the issue of materials, we need to make sure that the amount of the material or the quantity of the material is put in the right place. So when we look at the site stock as in how much of material is left at the stores. So whenever it comes below the threshold or below the reserves, we need to reorder the material. Hence, it is important for us to know how much stock is remaining at every point in time. That is something that the material issue will look after. Then we get into the recording of usage of logs for the plant. So if you have a batching plant, if you have a concrete mixer, if you have any other plant or equipment at the site, then we need to record the usage because this is our own. Either we will own it or we will be renting it. Hence, if you are looking at an equipment, it might be the usage of diesel, it might be usage of the electricity, it might be usage of the concrete, it might be usage of any source or any raw material. Hence, we need to record the usage of all the parameters in that plant because we'll get to know how much we are using versus how much is being produced and is it efficient enough or should we go for an alternative route of taking the material. The 10th one will be the purchase returns before invoices. So before we raise the payment invoice as a contractor. We need to make sure that if there are any returns, those purchase returns should be made and the debit note should be issued. Debit note as in whatever is the final amount, that note should be issued. Hence, let's say I get 200 m cube of sand. So if I'm getting 200 m cube of sand, but I need only 170, and I know that the 30 is going to be extra. So what I can do is I can send a return also. So if I'm sending a return, I need to raise another tax invoice for the purchase return. That will be from the contractor. The next point in terms of handling inventory is issue returns can be recorded for materials against the issues. If there are a lot of issues that comes in terms of materials, issues as in not mistakes or risks, issue as in handing of document. So if we hand over the documents or the usage recordings or the material indent or outdate of the plant or the equipment that we are using, before that we also need to give the returns as well. So before we use the equipment, we will know how much is actually required, how much is the extra. And if that extra part is too excess, we need to return it back. And that is where we need to issue the returns. Along with the purchase returns that needs to be invoiced, we need to issue the returns to the store also, just for the documentation purpose. The next point is in terms of receipt or return of scraps from site. So once the work is done, once the execution is done, we know that there are going to be some scraps, either in terms of few blocks, construction debris is what it is called, or majority scrap will be metal works in terms of steel or reinforcement bars, or sometimes aluminum, SS hand railing, MS hand railing. So these kind of materials are there which can be used for scrap, which will be sent back, recycled, melted again, and used again. So that receipt also should be kept in terms of how much extra do we have after execution. So we need to count that as well, and that also comes in inventory, because during the end of the project inside the site should be clean. Hence, all the scrap will be put up in the stores or next to the stores in a dump yard. There we need to go and measure and weigh and get to know the exact amount that is required in terms to sell to the scrap. The 13th point will be in terms of bill entry and scrutiny by accounts. Every invoice on every MTC, every delivery channel needs to be scrutinized by the accounts team or the purchase team. Purchase team here is the procurement team. Hence, procurement team will be handling the documents which are sent by the stores. The store's job is not to issue any money. The store's job is to collect all the documents, send it to the procurement team or the accounts team. They will handle the payments of the vendors or suppliers. That is why it is important for the scrutinization of all the bills and receipts from the store management team. The next will be in terms of stock statement. So stock statement as in for every physical material or physical stock that is in the stores, auditing needs to be done and the stock statement has to come up. So when we do auditing, it is all about how much material, what is the material, how much material is supposed to be there, but actually how much is there, what is the difference, why is the difference, and multiple other things. So if we are supposed to have 100 blocks in store, but we have only 92, that means 8 are missing. Did we send the 8 by mistake or by excess to someone? Or was it thrown off because of breakage or wastage? All those questions will crop up. That is why it's important for us to do audits as well. That again comes in the 15th point, which is actual stock versus the physical stock. What should be there versus what is actually there. So that is something that we'll be looking at when we do the stock audits. So where are those 8 blocks? Was it stolen? Was it given to someone? Was it not being added in the stock statement? All those mistakes will be solved if we do the stock audits. Then we look at the accounts payable. So for all the materials purchased based on the terms and aging analysis. Aging analysis as in terms of stage payment after the execution is done. So some materials will be paid 30 days after the execution is done or 50 days after the execution is done. So all those accounts payable will be based upon the accounts team and the purchase team, and then they will be paying the money to the vendors for the materials. Again, some vendors might come with an advance payment. Some vendors will accept 30 days line of credit. That means after 30 days also you can pay. So all those will be part of terms and conditions while you sign the agreement with the vendor. The last one will be to create periodic stock audits. That means you need to make sure every 3 months once or every month once, we need to have stock audits to check the efficiency of the store, see what is the wastage, what is the difference between actual and the physical, and how much money is being lost if we don't make these kind of audits. So that is something as a site engineer, you should be able to understand that these stock audits, yes, it might take some time, but if done right, it is going to save the company in terms of thousands or lakhs of rupees. That is why it's important to stock audits. Now, this is the construction inventory flow. So here, the first thing that we need to understand is the purchase order. Once the purchase order is given, they will be looking at the receipt, and then they will look at what is the stock that they have. So if they have enough stock, they are going to send it. If they don't have, they will get it from the manufacturer and they will send it like a dealer. Then we need to see how much cash purchase can we do out of these receipts. Let's say we get a receipt of 1 lakh and we have 80,000 cash. Will they accept that much cash? And then we should also see the transfers from other sites. So if we have excess material in other site in the same company, why can't we just transfer it instead of paying for the new material? That also is something that we'll be looking at. So all this will combine into material receipts. So in material receipts, if we have the requirement of such number of materials, we'll use it in the stock. If not, it will be sent as purchase return. Correct. So whatever is in the stock, we'll need to do physical verification or the stock, the audits. So once we do the physical verification, we'll get to know the excess and shortage notes. So do we have material in excess or do we have material in shortage? So according to receipts, it should be there. But if it is more than that, that means excess stock is there. If it is less than that, shortage of stock is there. That is why physical verification is required. Once we finalize the stock, then we need to go through the project budget. What is the budget? How much of material do we require? And we need to issue the materials to the site. So from store to the site, we'll be issuing the materials based on the requirement. Let's say I require 80 blocks to build a wall. Will I take only 80 blocks? Not really, because industry standard is approximately 5% breakage for blocks. So normally I should be taking 80 plus 5% of 80. So that is what I should be taking. That means 84 blocks. So I should be taking 84 considering that 4 blocks are going to break. But if I end up breaking 10 blocks, that means you would have issued 90 blocks, but the work has happened only for 80 blocks. That is why it's important for us to make sure that the breakage or wastage is very less or under the standards. And then we'll of course look into issue returns. If we are returning some material, let's say I take 84 blocks, but I use 82 itself, only two break, and 80 is perfect. So the other two blocks, will I just keep it there and make sure it ends up being broken, or will I get it back to the store and keep it safe? That will be issue return. With that, we'll have a lot of information coming through to issue the material as well. One will be subcontractor order. The subcontractor sometimes will come and tell, sir, I require this much of material and you need to supply. If it is a supply labor contract with the subcontractor. So there are two types of contract. One is supply labor, one is back to back. If it is supply labor, contractor will be supplying the material. So hence the subcontractor order will be there to issue the materials to them. Second is if you are having spare parts, you need to issue it to the equipment maintenance also. So equipment maintenance is something that will be throughout the project, and we need to have spare parts, calibration, diesel, these kind of materials which will enhance the efficiency of the equipment. The next is the execution, and during the execution, you will need to issue the materials throughout the project. We need to issue materials to employees as well. When I say employees, what kind of materials will go? Most probably it will be safety materials or safety equipments, a PPE kit or gloves, a harness, all those things which will be in stock as well. So when we say materials, it is not just construction materials, it is also materials for the employees. And the transfer. Transfer as in transfer from other sites and what we'll be sending to other site. The first one was transfer from the other sites. This is transfer to other sites. So if other site is in emergency and they badly need a material and we have excess material in our stock, we can send it to that site as well. Of course, the head office will take a decision on that, but that is also a type of issuing of material. So this is how the inventory flows. So just to keep you understand, a lot of reports are required, a lot of documents are required. The first one will be while finalizing the vendor, we need to make sure that the material purchase price are compared with the vendor's price and multiple vendors. Comparison sheet should be done to make sure we get the best pricing. Second is for the same material, what are their terms and conditions in terms of purchase? So if they are giving in 10 days, one vendor will be giving in 3 days, one vendor is giving in 3 months. What is the payment conditions? All those things will be used as well. The next one is in terms of item wise purchase comparison. So if it is one with the comparison of the supplier, this is in terms of the item. So if the quality of the item is to be compared as well, so we'll need the test reports. So if three companies are offering their services to you and products to you, we'll have to see what kind of tests do they pass, with how much quality do they pass. Then we have to have a report on stock statement generation with aging analysis, where we look at where to take the stock, where to keep it. When I talk about stores and stock management, remember or imagine that you are in a supermarket. So in supermarket also you will see a lot of stocks. When we say stock, that means the number of material or number of products at the store. So that statement should be done in regular variations or in regular timings or durations, where we look at which stock needs to be kept where to make sure it is efficiently used. The fifth report is in terms of consumables and another material minimum stock holding. So one is consumables. Consumables means, like I said, tools. So tools will be used continuously where we don't know where it is used for. Like nuts and bolts, we don't know where it is used for. Correct? So or like a trowel, we don't know which part of the site is using trowel. So these are consumables and another material minimum stock holding. So even with these materials, especially with the tools, we don't know where they are being used, because sometimes it will be used once and then it is gone, it is not coming back, or sometimes it is reused. Like trowel is not like, okay, you'll use it for only one wall, it might be used for the entire project itself. So we don't know how much is going to be used. That is why it is important for us to have minimum stock holding. That means minimum reserve of materials. Then we need to do project wise submissions for statement generation. Why we need to do project wise is because if we have 10 projects and we have excess in two projects for a material which is required in the other two projects. So with the stock statement generation for each project, we'll get to know how much can we transfer within the projects, so that we don't need to buy new from the vendor, which is going to save the company in thousands and lakhs. The seventh report is in terms of machinery availability and utilization. Sometimes what happens is, let's say you've taken a concrete mixer, and when you use the concrete mixer only for 2 hours in a day, that means the rest 6 hours it is sitting idle. So it is available, but you're not using it. So 6 hours, the concrete mixer could have been rented out and you could have made some more money. So efficient use of the equipment is very important. Let's say you build a batching plant at your site, but you use only 300 m cube of concrete. So if it's only for 300 m cube, then why did you even build a batching plant? Because for 300 m cube, you could have gone for RMC itself. Because RMC would be way more cheaper for just 300 m cube. But if you are doing 2000, 3000 m cube of concrete, then of course the batching plant will help you out because of the scale. Next is in terms of own hire charges report for machinery against the subject. That means if you are using the material or if you're using the equipment in a rental basis, that means own hire. So that is rental basis, then you need to have a report of for the machinery against the subject also. That means for what work are we using, what kind of machinery, how much hours are we using, what is the money spent on that machinery in terms of rental, what is the return on that investment, all those things will be coming in that report. And the last one will be ABC and XYZ analysis of materials inside. Now, ABC analysis and XYZ analysis are advanced concepts in site management. So here we look at the amount of materials, we look at the exposure of materials, we look at how can we make it better, and was it worth doing it with that material, when we look at the cost of it and the profit of it. So these kind of analysis and reports will be done inside, and this is how we can amalgamate the whole inventory stocks in the site. So this is how stores work. It's very easy from the outside to say that is a store, you go, you get a material and you move. But there is a lot of steps involved right from the material purchase to the payment of the material to the vendor. So that is how the stocks work. In the next video, we'll be looking at the job site layout and how to plan a job site layout before the project starts. So see you in the next video.